Hey, it's Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude. I am the host of a podcast called The Million Pound Mission. I am the lead professor of Million Pound Mission University. And today, Dov and I discuss how minimalism has impacted my entrepreneurial journey, my health journey, and how you can apply those things to impact your life as well.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything. Let me ask you, do you need to up-level your leadership? Well, on this episode, we'll talk about the taboo that hides beneath your business suit. What is it? Well, you'll have to wait and see. Remember, you can chat about this episode or any past episodes of our show by going into our Facebook group. Just go look for Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. As always, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into podcasts. We always need your help in staying relevant, so please go over to iTunes right now, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it when you do. Remember, you can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, all the way from Tampa, Florida, and Georgia, all the way to Wisconsin. Middle of nowhere, we're there. You can also catch us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And by the way, if you've got Google Home or you've got Alexa, just say play Dov Baron podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneur, or leader in any capacity, you know that leaders and top executives hold positions that convey power, prestige, and competence. They often fly around the world eating aeroplane food at odd times because they're flying in and out of different time zones. It doesn't take long before that the business dinners, the missed workouts, the exhaustion start to catch up, and that next business suit needs to be a little bit more roomy than the last one. And the last one was 3 sizes bigger than the one you got 5 years ago. Those same leaders who hold positions that convey power, prestige, and competence often feel powerless with regards to their own weight gain. In fact, 27% of health spending between 1987 and 2001 was attributed to obesity. The total cost of obesity to private employers is approximately $45 billion per year. So how can we as leaders slow down, even reverse the weight train gain and stop it from going off the tracks? Well, stay tuned, because our guest today is Adam Shively. Let me say that again, Adam Shively, PhD. He is an entrepreneur, community leader, host of the top-ranked fitness podcast, Million Pound Mission. He's a man on a mission that started in his hometown of Bloomington, Indiana, where he has created a bootcamp program that's produced over, wait for it, 35,000 pounds of results. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome entrepreneur, community leader, host of the top-ranked fitness podcast, A Million Pound Mission, Mr. Adam Shively, PhD!
Yes. For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching worldwide. Thank you so much, Dov. I'm so excited to be here. We are fast friends now that we've been in our podcast space for the last year or so. And yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. This is awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us, Adam. I appreciate it. I was on, for those of you who don't know, I was on Adam's show. He has, as I said, is a high-level podcast that's just blowing up everywhere on all the different platforms, because he understands the whole weight loss fitness game at a different level than most people do, and approaches it from a very different point of view. But I want to start here by saying that I introduced you as Adam Shively, PhD. Now, we don't want to mislead anyone, so please tell us the story of how you got your PhD. Because I loved this story when I heard you tell it when we first met.
Yeah, so I achieved my PhD about 12 years ago, and I ended up going on a transformation journey. So I achieved my PhD by becoming a previously heavy dude. At 12 years ago, so we're talking 2007, I was finding myself tipping the scales at about 327 pounds, Dob. So I kind of had my rock bottom moment that life kept on happening to me. And I was not only overweight, I was unhappy, full of anxiety, stress, lots of credit card debt. I was an entrepreneur trying to carve out a space for myself. I was in that hustle mode that we glorify so much. And I was hustling my way right towards the hospital. And I had to make some serious changes. So I went on a transformation journey of mental and physical capacity, ended up losing over 100 pounds. And then over a 5-year time span, I completely just rebooted my entire life, my career, my mindset. I helped my hometown lose 35,000 pounds, like you said. So that's just my hometown. That's only the people from Bloomington, Indiana in that 5-year time span. And I got a lot healthier. We helped my community get a lot healthier. And now we're ramping up. The next phase is the $1 Million Mission. We're launch the podcast and help as many people as possible to just reclaim control over their health. And that's the mission right now.
But weren't you interviewed on a show that was only going to interview PhDs?
Yes. So
tell us that story.
Yes.
Because this is the truth, folks, about how he got his PhD. This is the actual truth.
So yeah, the whole story I just told you, it kind of got glued together. I had to think fast on my feet. And as a podcaster, as a hustler, I got that hustle gene inside of me. There are certain shows as podcasters that we know that we would be great guests on. And we were like, that audience I can deliver. I just have to figure out a way to get on that show. So there was a podcast where the woman was interviewing all these doctors, Dr. Oz, Dr. Deepak Chopra, all these like famous PhDs, MDs, life-changing people. And I listened to her show. I loved it. And I was like, man, I could really bring some flavor to the show. And I know that it'll be a hot ticket. So I filled out the whole, intro form and all that. And it left a spot for like, accreditations and things like that. So I just signed my name as PhD. And I got through the first phase and we did a little pre-interview. And I was like, listen, I don't want to break the rules here because she only does doctors, Right. And so I was like, I put PhD on my application, but it stands for previously heavy dude. And she loved it. And I've been on our show 3 times since then.
Is that right?
Yes. So some of her top rated episodes, she keeps having me back. And it's a beautiful relationship. But that's the behind the scenes story of the PhD.
Yeah. When I heard you tell that story about they were only interviewing PhD doctors, and you applied and put PhD and then it stands for previously heavy dude. I remember hearing you talk about that and coming up to you and saying, that rocks. That was because this is one of the challenges in life, and it's really interesting because I read an article yesterday that Google and Apple are both now saying that you don't need a master's degree to get a job with them because they're understanding that there's something more valuable, which is called experience. And if you're a PhD in nutrition, which is great, and there's no disrespect to that, but I don't know that you understand it in the same way as somebody who's been through the emotional journey of having to lose 100 or more pounds. And I think that's a very, I think it's a very, the reason I laughed at it when I saw it was because I actually used to, many years ago, would put it on mine, but I'd make up what it was for, and then I'd tell people, right? Same thing, I'd make it up, but I'd tell them, right? But it's because there's so much more than just having the accolade There's actually the experience. So talk to us a bit about this now, because I want to go back here because you were an athlete, right? You were an athletic guy. You were so talk to us. So tell us that background first, so we have a place of beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't get to talk about that enough. I feel like I tell the weight loss story a lot, but the weight gain story, I feel like, is just as important. And that's where a lot of lessons can be taken away.
Yeah.
So, I grew up playing basketball here in Indiana. Basketball is the deal. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, from the age of 6 through 18, I was playing basketball for hours and hours and hours every single day. Very active, burning a lot of calories. My senior year in high school, I decided that I was not going to play basketball in college. And I kind of fell in love with weightlifting and strength training. I got hooked up with a local kind of a meathead gym. You would love it, Dov. If you ever come to town, I'm bringing you to the Iron Pit Gym, man.
Oh, sounds like even the name I like.
It just sounds like a good time.
It does. The Church of Iron, as I like to call it.
Yes. So I got in to powerlifting and strength training. But at that same time, I quit playing basketball and then I entered college. So less calorie burn. My metabolism's cranking from all the strength training. I'm hungry all the time. And I'm on a college diet of the dormitory food with the little swipe cards that you don't even, it's not even the real money. You just keep swiping the card. And beer, alcohol was introduced to the equation. So a lot of empty calories. And every year in college, I put on 25 pounds every single year, getting stronger and all that and justifying my health through strength. But then I started having blood pressure issues and joint issues and all this stuff. So when I graduated college, I weighed 275 pounds. And then I put on a couple, about 50 more pounds the 2 years after college. And man, I was dealing with food addiction, and things like I basically got to the point where I'm still one of those people that if you open up a bag of chips or cookies or something, I'm not the guy that eats one. I'm like, okay, now I'm good. I'm going to wipe them out. Like the whole thing. I'm looking for more. So
let's pause that for a moment, because I think this is important, right? Because we've got several things here. First of all, we've got, I think that it happens to so many people. I'm in great shape. It's just the way I am. So I'm never going to become heavy. And that's a really nice idea when you're in your teens or maybe even in your 20s. And then suddenly you go, holy crap, I got to get a 2-inch size bigger waistline from my pants or 4-inch size bigger from my pants. What the hell happened? Right. So there's that presumption of I'm healthy or I'm fit and I'm going to stay that way without doing anything. That's number one. On top of that, as you said, you stop being so active. But on top of that, I want to talk about another piece here, which I know you've had many guests on your show talk about. And I know you've become quite the expert in it, which is this understanding of food addiction. And I thank you, by the way, for saying that, you're in great shape. And by the way, years I've seen him without his shirt on. You're in wicked shape. You look great. You do, right? You look great. You take care of yourself. But at the same time, the bag of chips comes out of the bag of cookies. And you said, like you said, you can't eat one. Talk to us about how you deal with that on a day-to-day basis, because many of our listeners are executives and they're like, well, I do pretty good, but I fly on an airplane. There's nothing I can do. You know what I mean? So talk to us about that impulse eating.
Well, I think we could even take it a level above that, even with anything that continuously trips us up. Like sometimes people that are super busy, entrepreneurs, it's not necessarily food addiction, but it's the travel, like you said, and they can never establish a clear routine. So I feel just like understanding our danger zones, whether it's food addiction, taking vacations, business stress, family stress, just understanding the way I look at it is like we're on a transformation journey and there's a road, right? And we're at one point and we can see, our goal at the other end of the road, but there's this big hole in the middle of the road, right? And we can walk and keep our eye on the prize, but we fall into the hole. Or we could, ride a bike and we ride the bike right into the hole. We get a car, we drive right into the hole. So many times people will be like, well, CrossFit didn't work for me, or Weight Watchers didn't work for me, or, paleo didn't work for me. But the thing that didn't work for them is that they weren't conscious and mindful of that hole in the road. It doesn't matter what modality you take. So with me, understanding that food addiction is the hole in the road, where a lot of people that might be nighttime snacking. It might be family stress, vacations. Like I said, you have to understand that that's your danger zone. You have to identify it, analyze it, know what all the circumstances are, and then prepare ahead in advance for that. The next time that it pops up, you have to put a little action step inside your front pocket there that you can pull out to give yourself a better fighting chance to overcome that. So I know with my food addiction, I know my trigger foods. I know I can eat as much pizza as you put in front of me, Dov. You have donuts, pizza, like as much as you want.
You're Mr. Carbs.
I can take care of business. So if there are certain situations where I'm maybe a little bit lower on sleep, my willpower is a little bit depleted, I've been working hard, working out hard, and my parents have us over for pizza dinner, I know I just can't go there because it's not going to turn out well. So just, again, I think understanding the danger zone principle and being able to be mindful and just think ahead and think strategically, that puts us at a huge advantage where most people just cover their eyes and hope for the best. And they just run smack face right into that danger zone every time and wonder why they keep on losing weight, regaining it, regaining more, back and forth and beating themselves up. I call that cycle the black hole of fitness doom, where, they start something new, they get some initial results, life happens, they're not ready for it, they fall in that hole, they go right back where they started, and around and around and around they go, where they, it's harder every time mentally and physically because we deplete our hope, our willpower, our finances, our energy, and it's just a terrible place to be. So that's, if I was going to define the £1 Million Mission, that the real mission is helping people reclaim control from that whole scenario.
So help us out a little bit, Adam, because that's really powerful stuff there. In the context of, let's go to the context of the executive, the entrepreneur, the person who's, maybe sitting at a computer for 10, 12 hours a day, and then is off on flights and is taking flights for places and then going to conferences and eating that kind of food. You talked about, having that action step in your pocket. What would be a piece of guidance you would give to that kind of an individual?
Again, great question there, Dov. I love operating from a mindset of a 28-day game plan. I feel like, especially super busy people, you can set a health goal for this year. Like in 2019, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay, cool. But let's take it in 28-day stair steps, right?
Okay.
And that's enough time to see a difference. That's enough time to see a result, but it's not going to intimidate you. And it's not so far out in advance that all these variables are going to happen and everything changes anyway. So usually somebody that is in control somewhat of their schedule will know 28 days, we pretty much have like 80% of the way there. Maybe some spontaneous travel or something happens, but 80% of the way we can figure it out. So in that 28-day cycle, I want you to think about 4 things. The first thing is being committed to a nutrition strategy. I don't even want to say a diet, but just you're going to commit to a set of general rules. So if you're like, okay, I'm focusing on eating paleo, I know what I can and cannot have. I know what I'm focusing on. I know what I'm focusing on avoiding. And I'm committed to that for 28 days. I'm not going to change. This is something I see a lot, especially from entrepreneurs. They have the nutritional ADD that's like, and especially the ones that listen to podcasts. I did a whole podcast on overcoming fitness podcast overwhelm because people are like, they listen to a Weight Watchers podcast and the Weight Watchers on Monday. They listen to a CrossFit podcast and they go to paleo on Wednesday and then it's cheat day the rest of the day. We have to put a ring on the finger and commit for 28 days on your nutrition. The second thing to focus on is the same thing with your fitness. And with entrepreneurs that are traveling a lot, we have a kind of a home game and an away game plan. We'll have an overall, like, okay, we're going to shoot for 3 hours a week. And if we're on home base, this is what that's going to look like. We know strength training, cardio, where we're doing it, who we're doing that with. And then the away game, usually I try to arm them with some like online videos, follow along stuff. We figure out, what do I have access to at the hotel? Can I just do body weight stuff? So we have those game plans. We know what we're going to do and how we're going to execute that, whether we're here or out on the road, inspiring the millions. So that's the second thing, the 28-day commitment to your fitness game plan. The third thing that we focus on is what I call strategic thinking, which is the whole black hole of fitness doom. In the next 28 days, what could totally destroy our momentum? What could throw us out of whack? What danger zones are lurking? Do you have a birthday? Are you an accountant and it's tax season? Are you going on spring break vacation? Do you have in-laws coming in to stay with you? What could throw a wrench in your game plan? All right. So we just look 28 days. We just scan that holiday season. Oh my God, that's the giant one. So what could throw us out of our rhythm? And we create that one action step to help us think ahead.
That's great.
That's the third thing. The fourth thing is just focus on consistency with the first three. Consistency with our nutrition, consistency with our fitness, consistency with thinking ahead, 28 days in our danger zone. So if we can lay out that 4-part foundation in a 28-day cycle, we've got a legitimate shot at, setting a big goal for a year and achieving it with that stair-step process.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's very, it's nice and clean and clear. So I want to go back a little bit because, one of the things you talked about was, we talked about you being healthy, then gaining the weight, and we've even talked about you losing the weight. But I want to talk about this piece in the middle, which is where you talked about, you realized that you were depressed and you were anxious and all those kinds of things. Do you feel the weight took you there, or do you think you were there and the weight added to it?
That's hard to say.
That's 22 for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. The real thing that was deteriorating was my mindset.
Right.
And I called myself, well, now I call myself back then a crap magnet. That's the scientific term that I've come up with.
Really?
And because I believe in that law of attraction, I've done the studies, it's science. Crap magnetism is real. But it's the law of attraction, right? And at the point that really things shifted for the better for me was like up to that point of 2007, my weight is skyrocketing. My mindset is depleting. I didn't really read or do anything. I'd read like the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. That was my main reading, high level.
Studying hard.
I was locked in. I was locked in on that. I wasn't playing around. But then I had somebody that was a friend of mine that pushed a DVD across at me called The Secret, The Law of Attraction. And that was my first dose of personal development material ever.
Oh, really? That was your first personal development?
First thing ever. So I sat down that night, I watched it, and I'm like, law of attraction. And that's when I realized I'm attracting pure crap into my life, all this stress, because that's all I was ever focusing on. So I sat down that night, and this is July of 2007. And I set a goal for 5 years, how I wanted my life to change and the life that I wanted to achieve. And I set an end date of July 12th, 2012. And I wrote this statement that I now call my lifestyle rehabilitation statement. I needed to rewire my brain, the way I was thinking.
Yep.
Right. And I believe in the law of attraction, but I also believe that you can't spell attraction without action. And that was the key thing for me was
right.
I wrote this statement that was kind of my guiding, my guiding spirit. I read it every morning and every night for 5 years. I never, ever missed. I read it out loud. Everyone knew what I was doing. I would try to put myself in that space of very positive, those results I was trying to achieve. I had to rewire my brain every morning. It set me up to look for the things, those connections, those opportunities. And then every night it was accountability. I had to chip away every single day. I couldn't go to bed until I did something that pushed me towards one of those goals that I was affirming every single day. And then over that 5-year time span, I lost 100 pounds. I got out of $40,000 of credit card debt. I started a business. I helped my hometown lose 35,000 pounds. I met my wife. We started a family, bought a house, like all these like crazy things that happened in a 5-year time span of just rewiring my brain and deciding that I was worth it. My goals were worth it. So I was just going to hammer away every day and just do a little bit. And that created some serious momentum.
See, I wanted to talk to you because there's a lot of things here. Obviously there's the weight loss, there's the 1 Million Pound mission that you're doing, and I want to talk a lot more about that in a moment. There's the fact that you're an entrepreneur, but there's the transformation of Adam, which I was really taken with, which is you're this pizza eating, overeating, stress eating guy who is fumbled his way through college and is trying to do entrepreneurship and is, and I'm sure was pulled by the glitz and glamour, because one of the things I really see a lot of these days is that entrepreneur is the new rock star. You know, we all see the commercials on our social media feeds or wherever we're watching of the entrepreneur standing by their new Ferrari or Lamborghini and telling us how wonderful they are as they take off in a plane with some girl leaning over them with more cleavage than, you know, I mean, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you, on the other hand, live in a small town in Indiana with your family. You drive a second-hand or an older electric car, and you're a minimalist. So talk to us about that, because that is something that I'm seeing more of in the leadership space, is that people are beginning, like I used to live in a 5-bedroom house in the suburbs. I now live in a condo, a townhouse downtown in the city. You know, I live like a millennial, right? So tell us about your move, like what triggered that whole thing to minimalism. Was that the debt or was it something else? And
I'm so glad you brought this up, Dov. I love talking minimalism because it's, first off, I feel like it's important to define minimalism a little bit, because sometimes people think like it's a cult or like a religion type thing. It's almost like a filter to me.
Right.
So there's a book that I love that is, I always mess up the title. I'm not even going to say it, but the main quote is that with minimalism, you maximize what brings you the most value in your life and you minimize the rest.
Right.
So it's not like you have to get rid of everything. You can't have multiple cars. You can't do, it's like, if cars are what gives you the most value, then that's cool. That's, you know, maximize that. But it just was a freeing filter for me. I watched the documentary on Netflix, the minimalism documentary with Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. And it just opened my eyes to, okay, the currency that I really want to focus on, that I want to operate in, is lifestyle and owning my life and having low stress. So at the time I was, you know, at a large house, lots of home debt and all this going on, and focused on like purchasing land and all this stuff. And I was like, this doesn't add value to me. It just adds stress.
Mm-hmm.
So let's change things up. So we ended up, actually, the house that I'm in right now, this was like my first house that I bought with my wife. It was our starter home. And we decided to buy the bigger house with the pool and the land and all that stuff, the fancy house. And we rented this one out. And then, you know, a few years ago, when the whole minimalism thing really took off for me, I approached my wife. I was like, hey, I think if we sell this house and just move back to the other one, we can pay off the mortgage and not have a mortgage. And that, you know, we can both retire probably in our 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, would you be up for that? And she's like, yes, that sounds amazing. So we just started thinking in the currency of not trying to keep up with the Joneses. It was more maximizing what we, you know, the value that we wanted to get out of life. And that's like, so another good example is, I was in a mastermind recently with a bunch of fellow podcasters, and everybody setting these goals and everything. We went around the circle. Everybody had to say like what their goal was for this year. And everybody, it was like, you know how it can be. It's kind of like the pissing contest thing that happens.
Of course, everybody's trying to help everybody else.
Yeah, the first one's like, I'm doing $500,000 in sales, another $1 million. And by the time it gets to me, it's like 5 million. And I stand up and I go, well, I paid off my mortgage last year in my 30s. That was one of my big goals. My goal this year is I'd like to have $60,000 in residual income. And I want to drop off my kids and pick them up every single day and just play the rest of the day when they get home. That's my goal for this year. And everybody was just like, what? how are you going to pull this off? But that's like, I know that, you know, more income is just more. It's just more to me. It's not what, you know, the quality that I'm looking for. So it's just a point of just, do I want to do something to do more, or is this actually impactful? Is this actually effective? So things like clothes, I own 80 total pieces of clothing, counting what I have on my body. So at any point in time, I have 10% of my total clothing wardrobe on my body. So, but clothes don't bring value to me.
Right.
You know, fancy cars. I drive a 2013 Nissan Leaf. It's a full electric car, and it does go like it's my joke is it goes 0 to 60 in about half an hour.
But
no,
0 to 60 in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it eventually gets there. But I feel good about that because it's zero emission and it's good for the environment. And I drive around town. I don't have to ever buy gas, and it's that makes me feel very, very happy. That adds a lot of value. So I would just challenge entrepreneurs to think through that minimalist filter mindset of what's actually bringing value in your life. Don't just make more money just to make more money, or to buy things just to buy things. Like, really think about what value is being brought to you and maximize that and minimize the rest.
Yeah, I mean, so much of how we live is based on the comparison world. Social media has made that bigger than ever. Is that we're always looking at the picture, as I said, of the guy with the new Ferrari and the girl leaning over his shoulders and all that kind of stuff. And like, who gives a crap? I mean, like you said, if you really, I've got a friend who loves cars and has a ton of cars. He has 12 cars in my building, 12 cars, right? Which, I don't know that some of them I know he hasn't driven in years. Right? They're antiques. They're beautiful vehicles, but he loves cars, and I have no problem with that because he loves cars. Yep. But I own more shirts than he does, right? Because I love nice shirts, and yep. So I love what you're saying about, like, find out what brings you the joy, and if you want to buy that, sure, buy that, but don't buy stuff because you think you should have it because Johnny just bought a new one, whatever it is, right? And I thought it was a really important thing. How does minimalism play into, or does it? Maybe it doesn't. How does minimalism play into health, fitness, and eating for you? Does it play in there, or is it a different category altogether?
No, I think it 100% does. So, I mean, there's a lot of confusion in the whole health space, right? There's so many options, so many, the new, Thigh Master Supreme 3000, and then the new diet, and it's all flashy. So I feel like, again, taking that principle of what's bringing value in health, that's like what's bringing results, what's effective, what are the foundational things that always produce positive results, and really honing down into that. The 4 things we talked about earlier. But like at my gym, I own a fitness center, and we don't have any machines. We have 0 machines. Mm-hmm. We have weights, we have barbells, we have dumbbells, kettlebells, bands. We have lots of space to help people move through. We have squat racks and things like that, but mm-hmm. not a single machine. So from a fitness perspective, that's what I do. I do barbell movements, body weight movements, and that's pretty much what I do. And that's what works for me. So just having a simplistic mindset of we don't need to overwhelm ourselves with all these options, all these fancy things. Like, again, if there's a class that's really, high tech and you love it, and it's tons of machines and stuff, then cool, that, do that, but it's not necessary. It's not needed. You can really break it down to eat clean, sweat regularly, move, act like a human being, and try to keep your stress levels low, and you can do some pretty serious goal damage on that.
Well, one of the things, I've seen pictures of your gym, and one of the things that people will, so even executives and leaders and such, will say, well, there's nowhere to work out, or the gym didn't have any good equipment, right? And, when you look at your gym, you see, well, there's no big equipment, right? So it's not about that. Yep. And so that excuse goes out of the window. And that's one of the things that I liked, is that, well, hold on a second, there's a way for you to work out in your hotel room, right? That doesn't require even the basic gym, but if they have one, you can certainly use that too. So yeah. I saw that with you with the minimalist, even at the workout level, which is very cool. Let's go back a bit further, because human beings, in my belief, in my experience, and my research, we are formed in our formative years psychologically. And I would like to know, from 2 sides, how did your childhood, the way you were brought up, how did that impact the way that you became? And that could be very good, it could be very bad, it could be both. How did it impact you?
Dav, you're killing it on the interview today, man. As a fellow podcaster, like when you guys are just treated to a weekly treat every time you listen to one of these episodes, because Dav is a master interviewer. I'm just going to tell you guys that.
Thank you, sir. You're very kind.
What a great question. So this is something I've never talked about, Dav. And it's interesting that you bring up the way I was raised. Growing up, I had an older half sister that is 9 years older than me. All right.
Oh.
So we now know that she was extremely bipolar, very addictive in her personality, and just, I mean, scary situations pretty much daily.
Right.
And with her, and she was older enough than me that I'm a little kid and she's a teenager and I have no idea what's going on. I'm just getting scared. And I see her like carving her boyfriend's name into her arm with a razor blade, and like just stuff that makes no sense, banging her head up against the wall until it bleeds. Sure. And stuff like that. So I think having her out there ahead of me like that really made me realize what I didn't want to act like. Like I was, so just all of the wildness, and, she was very involved in drugs and alcohol and just bad relationships and just a lot of randomness. I feel like that really tightened me up into like, okay, I know I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to experiment with those things. And it kept me on a straight line to where, discipline, even though I lost discipline a little bit in college when I gained all the weight, but still I always had the mindset of like, I have to have goals. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to keep a fairly tight regimen in general to make progress towards those goals. And that I feel like that shaped something in me from an early age, just having that experience of just complete. I mean, I was scared a lot of times because she was babysitting me and my younger sister. And it's something that definitely has impacted me moving forward in a lot of different ways.
Tell us how you, as a small kid, coped. Because that's traumatic. You see an older sibling who is, quote unquote, supposed to take care of you, carving somebody's name into a flesh or banging a head onto the wall or having some kind of episode. How did Adam cope as a little boy?
It's hard to say. I think a lot of times me and my younger sister would just kind of team up together and just kind of support each other and emotionally just kind of, bond together. And that's why we're really, really close. And I think that's the place that you went, because it's almost like my older sister would fight with my parents so much that they were always at odds. And that was a part of just the constant eruptions going off, because we didn't know what was going on with her. Like back then, the bipolar and all that stuff, it wasn't as like just
wasn't
readily
diagnosed. Yeah. It wasn't known as much. Yeah.
It was just like teenage rage, and she's just kind of crazy acting and all this, and so, yeah, it took out a certain part of my childhood where I feel like still like my parents were kind of worn out by that. Like, I feel like I didn't quite get the full, my parents are amazing. I mean, I lucked out. I won the lottery with parents, but I feel like they were worn down by that quite a bit. So the full experience of the family sometimes was greatly impacted. And it's still, my sister is not in my life right now. Like a lot of times we don't even know where she's at. We're just amazed that she hasn't been in jail or dead, and she ended up having a child, which now my parents have adopted and they raised, and she's an amazing, my niece is amazing and just a real miracle. But, like when my daughter was born, my sister put a message out on Facebook that she was coming to pay us a visit, and she had a knife and all this stuff. And like every time, like it keeps creeping into special moments. So I think, long story short, long-winded answer for your question, I feel like it kind of hardened me a little bit to like, I can compartmentalize relationships, and I can take people and be like, okay, you're not going to get into my inner circle of how I think and how I feel. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's probably not good overall, but it's a skill that I've acquired through that relationship with her that's allowed me to be like, okay, you just don't get to be a part of this with me. So I feel like that's probably the main way it's impacted me.
So you've had to really develop some very strong boundaries, not just for yourself, but for your own family, your wife and your own kids. But it's interesting because I mean, as I said, right at the beginning of the question, we're all impacted by our childhood. And I'm not here to say anybody's parents are bad, because that's, everybody's doing whatever they can do. But at the same time, it's clear, for me, with a psychology background, it's clear that you would have lost a good chunk of being a child and the joy of having parents, because they could not have been emotionally available to you while they were dealing with that, and particularly with a sister who's 9 years older, it's like, it's constant. So, from the age you're old enough to really notice that, say 5, she's already 14, that you're just not getting that kind of love and attention that you would naturally need. And what I wonder about that is, how has that impacted, have you considered or thought about how it's impacted you parenting?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I shower love onto my kids at almost an annoying level. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, my 4-year-old daughter is like, "Daddy, quit the kisses," and it's just like, I'm an energy giver, whether it's, I'm talking to, when we hang out and we do podcast meetups and stuff, like, I'm giving energy. I love to do that. So I feel like a lot of that comes from this whole scenario of, I just want to shower people with, I want to give them some positivity. I want to let them borrow some of this big energy that I've got, whether it's my kids or my friends. And, I just make sure, like, I tell my kids and my wife that I love them, like, all day long. And that's something that's just, it's constantly coming out of my mouth, that to the point where they're almost numb to it, I'm sure. But it's something I feel like it's a big part of who I am and who I want to be and how I want to represent myself as a father and as a husband. So,
and it's who we see you as a human being. I mean, as I said, I'm blessed in that I get, I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and we've gotten to hang out, and we've actually physically been in the same place and hung, and that is who you are. And that's one of the lovely things, one of the things I love about you and genuinely love about you, right? It's that is who you are. You're very loving and caring and playful, but at the same time, very giving. It's not just like the bravado. It's genuinely present for people. What is the dream that you hold as a father for your children?
Oh man, I feel like, one, I just want to lead by example. I want to be a good example of a father, a husband, a friend, and just kind of give them that template, because, that's something that I feel like as parents, it's super important, and that's kind of going away these days, especially in the entrepreneurial world where, dad's gone all the time or
Sure.
whatever. Like, I told, a bunch of my clients at my gym, I'm like, as I've kind of backed down on the amount of hours I put in there, I just told them straight up. I said, I'd rather have you guys say, "Where's Adam?" versus my kids saying, "Where's Dad?" I mean, that's the exchange that I'll make, all day, every day. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Having that connection with them is super important, but I want them to know that it's okay to show affection, and it's okay to be loving and be kind to people, and hopefully, be a good communicator. And I'm teaching them. So on the more fun side of this, they see me podcasting, they see me live casting, they see me doing my thing. My son will join me sometimes in my live cast, and it's hilarious, and it's of his choice. I don't ever make him do it, but they approach me and like, "Dad, we want to do our own YouTube channel." So I'm like, awesome. So that's like, that was a thrill for me. So we're building their YouTube channel, and which is Healthy Kids TV, which is pretty cool, because it's like,
very cool.
Yeah, it's us doing healthy things, it's us working out together and doing healthy food challenges. And of course we do a few like Nerf gun fights and some video game stuff in there, but just having that experience together, and them kind of having that, they see what I am doing and wanting to kind of do their own version of that and showing interest in that, and like asking me if they could do that. That was
that's really inspiring.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate you letting us in on that part of your life. Now, in part of the introduction that I said about you was, outside of being a podcaster and entrepreneurial, I said that you're a community leader. Talk to us, tell us a little bit about, well, we've got a couple of things here, and I know they tie together. One is the £1 Million Mission, and the other is the Dalai Lama connection. So talk to us about how those two things tie together.
Yeah, well, I'm a big community. Like that's one of my special skills. One of them is I implement like none other. Like I don't waste my time. If I get excited about something, I go. But the other one is building community and just creating a mission and bringing people in that can either serve that mission or that mission can serve them. And again, I'm a big energy giver. So one of my friends, one of my clients, is his name's Kunga Norbu. And he, I didn't even know this for the longest time, but he's the nephew of the Dalai Lama, which I joke like that always sounds like something that one guy would make up to impress another person. You know?
Hey, what's your name? I'm Bob. What about you? Oh, I'm the Dalai Lama's cousin.
Yeah, exactly. So Kunga, his family, so his father is the brother of the current sitting Dalai Lama. And their family came to the United States, and their job and their whole culture, and they're like famous in their culture, of course, their job is to bring awareness to the Tibetan cause and what's going on with them in the entire United States. So
of course,
Kunga's dad started doing these really long walks where they would Tibetan freedom walks. He would walk from Washington, D.C. to New York or walk cross country. And eventually, you know, their whole family's involved, and eventually Kunga's father passes on, and his brother takes the mantle on that, Jigme Norbu. And Jigme was actually killed on one of the walks. He was run over by a car. They were walking at night and instantly killed, and huge tragic loss for the Tibetan community here and abroad. So then Kunga takes up his leadership position and he starts doing the walks. But then he ends up having a stroke. So, I mean, not while he was doing a walk, but outside of that.
Yeah.
And that's when he was actually one of my clients at my gym, and we got him, you know, rehabilitated. And one of the whole points of the walk is you stop in each town and you talk and you do big speeches. Well, after he had his stroke, he had a really hard time speaking, and he can speak, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like I'm kind of the Kunga interpreter. Like I can understand what he's saying. It's like talking to my 4-year-old sometimes, you know, like I can understand what they're trying to communicate, but he was very nervous. So I said, all right, Kunga, here's the deal. I'm a podcaster. I can talk all day, every day, buddy. And I got a big, loud podcaster voice. It had been 3 years since he had done a walk, and the Tibetan community was kind of in need of that. They were kind of egging him on. It's his family responsibility. So I said, let's go walk together. And a Caucasian person has never been a part of this before. So I'm the big noisy. I was dubbed. I had the official position in the Tibetan contingent as the big noisy white man. That and so
BNWM. So not only PhD, but big noisy white guy.
Big noisy white man. So I'm walking with Kunga, with monks, with like random Tibetan people that would find us. And we walked from our hometown to Columbus, Ohio. So it was about 200 miles. It took us 8 days. We walked a marathon every day. Just an adventure beyond belief. But we would live cast and do interviews. I actually did an interview with Joshua Fields Milburn, one of the minimalists that we talked to earlier. I had a connection with him, and he wanted to support our cause. So we went on this epic adventure, me and the nephew of the Dalai Lama, walking and talking to people about Tibet. He's got a giant Tibetan flag, and he's screaming, you know, through rural, you know, Kentucky, free Tibet. And I'm thinking like, somebody's going to knife us here. I know it. You know, going across giant bridges. I don't like bridges, Dov. That's another thing that's like a secret tidbit about me. And we're walking across these giant bridges, and I can feel them moving, and Kunga's behind me laughing at me, and he's like, free Tibet. And
you're like, just get me off the bridge, man. Forget Tibet for a minute. I'll just get off the bridge, please.
There were a couple of days where things got a little testy. We were short on water. It was really hot. I may or may not have called the nephew of the Dalai Lama an a-hole every once in a while.
Yeah, but everyone wants that on a resume. What's on your resume? I called the nephew of the Dalai Lama an a-hole.
Yeah. So, but we ended up, you know, we completed the mission, and his uncle, the Dalai Lama, was aware of it. He gave us a special blessing, and we had these Tibetan, they're called kata. It's like a scarf that you wear. Yep. And, you know, they were doing prayers, and 6 million Tibetan people were aware of what we were doing. And we would have random Tibetan people just like running down the road with crock pots full of food, trying to find us and give us food and say, thank you. But it's like, I'm friends with like a million Tibetan people on Facebook now. They just keep on coming. I was on
That's
Tibetan
fantastic.
TV. I mean, the whole
That's awesome.
So it was just an epic experience of just being able to help. It was really what it came down to is Kunga's my friend. And I know that he feels a lot of weight from his community to be a leader.
Sure.
And he just needed somebody to kind of fill in that gap of being the mouthpiece. And I was so glad to do that for him. And it's an experience I'll never forget. And what an epic journey, man. That's something.
That's beautiful, mate.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. So beautiful. You know, as I said, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're a podcaster, you're a businessman, you know, and you're a community leader, and you've even found a way to combine that now with the work that you're doing with your new online university. So tell us a little bit about this, because this £1 million mission is a very serious mission. So just talk to us about what that is actually about and how that's translated into your university.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, especially in the podcasting space, they'll be like, I want to inspire a billion entrepreneurs. Okay. Well, that's just a saying out there. Like I'm always like, how are you going to track that? So exactly. I'm very analytical. So I have a £1 million mission tracker on our website. So if people go to the webpage, they can donate their weight loss. So if somebody hears this and maybe they implement that 28-day game plan and they lose 12 pounds, they need to go to the website, millionpoundmission.com, donate their weight loss. There's no opt-in. There's no barrier. It's not behind any sort of wall. You go and you see it add to the ticker, and the ticker goes up, 55,000 pounds. So we're creating that sense of we're in it together. It's not my mission, it's our mission. And everybody that comes on my podcast, every podcast that I'm able to be a guest on, you are absorbed into the mission, because we are now helping get the word out there and giving tools to make that change. So to drive that, we're creating programs like £1 Million Mission University, which you so graciously became a professor in and really lit it up. Amazing. Straight fire from my friend Dav.
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, if you get a chance to, by the way, I know that I'm not the only one, but if you are interested, you should really go check it out, because it's not just about weight loss or even fitness. It's also about the right kind of thinking to keep you healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Yeah. And that's important, because there's so much confusion in the health space. And what I try to do is just bring some clarity. So that's the whole point of the university, is I'm bringing all sorts of different people from different nutritional styles. That's another issue. Like, I'm not team vegan versus team keto. It's like, let's use the right tool for the right job. Let's learn as much as possible. Like Bruce Lee says, absorb what is useful. And I am facilitating an environment where we, as a community of people that want to improve our health and level up our health, we're going to get together once a month and do little roundtable discussions where I'm going to make sure people are implementing. So I don't want to just entertain you. Like Dav lights it up. His presentation is absolutely entertaining and inspiring, but I want you to take that and implement and get something out of it. So that's where I'm going to hold you accountable, give you that support. And that's kind of the secret sauce that I try to, sprinkle on anything that I create, is a little bit of accountability, a lot of support, a lot of positive mojo, but making sure that we're actually implementing the things that are inspiring us. That's where the rubber meets the road. And that's how we actually create change.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in a world where everybody's afraid of offending anybody else, I believe that leaders are courageous. I don't think you can lead without courage. So I would like to ask you to share with us a brave opinion. What is something that's an opinion that you hold that it might be seen as brave because it's maybe not the regular way that other people see it, and people are like, ooh, but it's important to you. You truly believe this.
Well, it's kind of what we just touched on a little bit, where in health and nutrition, there are so many camps out there, like cult mindsets of like, CrossFit is the only answer. And if you don't do CrossFit, you're a moron. Or vegan, even the vegan people, like the vegan people are supposed to be these peaceful hippie, like tree hugger people. And I'm seeing them go on my friends that are ketogenic diet people going, you are going to give everyone heart attacks. And I'm like, what are you saying? So I am of the belief that, and it's controversial in the health space, is that you probably don't need a new diet. You probably don't need a new fitness regimen. You just need a better game plan. You need to get what's right between your ears first and have like an instruction manual. Forget what you're trying to build, the keto diet, using CrossFit, using yoga, using Weight Watchers. Those are all tools in your toolbox.
Right.
I want you to have the instruction manual. That's where you start. Because if you're trying to build a shelf and you're just taking a screwdriver and banging on a nail, who cares? Right. What are you trying to build? And then have that instruction manual. So that's kind of the controversial belief in the health space, is that I'm not on a team. I'm not on team vegan or team keto or whatever. Those are all just tools in the toolbox. I'm focused on that, leveling up our thinking outside of the toolbox, if you will, and making sure that we have a really rock solid game plan. That's focus point number one.
Yeah, I love that, and I fully agree with you, because I've said for years to people that I think that it doesn't matter whether we're talking about health and fitness or anything, business and growing your business, people are always looking for the magic wand, that one thing that is going to change it all. But the truth of the matter is, you have to have a toolbox. Otherwise everything looks like a nail if the only tool you have is a hammer. And if you're approaching everything from a place of, well, you've got to be a vegan, or you've got to be keto, or you've got to be paleo, or whatever it is. And, I know what my eating is because I know what works for my body. And I've tried lots of different things, and that's what you've got to do. And you've got to find it. And, I remember having a conversation with Handsome Bob, who we both know that is. And I said to him the same thing, like, no, absolutely not. Vegetarian is fantastic for people it works for. Yep. Vegan is fabulous for people it works for. It doesn't work for me. I know I tried it. I did it. I felt sick and unhealthy, but I know people who are super healthy on it, and I encourage them to stay with that. Yep. And I love what you're saying there. And I love that you don't want to play into that game of saying, well, the latest bandwagon is this, so I'm going to jump on that, as opposed to saying, hold on, let's get what works for you. And as you said, build that manual, work out what's between your ears, get your coconut right if you're going to play the game properly. And I love that. Thank you.
Yep.
Tell us, so I think I already know the answer to this one, which I was going to ask you, what's your guilty pleasure? And I think you already told us that is anything that's got processed carbohydrates in it.
Carbs, yes.
So what truly brings you joy?
Okay, and this is across the board, Dov. I love to learn new things. Yeah. And I love to teach people what I learn. Just seeing that spark, whether it's my children or like fellow podcasters. I just sent out an email to a bunch of my podcast people that we know, like through the Facebook group and everything. And I was like, I'm going to start a weekly news blast, just because I just like to share what I'm learning. So if I do a new Instagram tactic that works, I want to share that with people like immediately. Right. So I just love, seeing somebody that's struggling and being able to say, do this one thing, and that light bulb goes off. And that's like better than anything for me.
Fantastic. Listen, mate, it's been a joy and a pleasure having you here. Before we go, I want you to give our listeners, our viewers, one piece of practical advice, one thing that they can go do immediately, they can put into action immediately, it will genuinely give them the right direction, put their head, their body right for where they want to go.
Well, I'll issue a 24-hour challenge. I love this. So if you guys, especially if you're listening on your phone and your phone's right there, I want you to set the alarm for 24 hours from now. All right. So whatever time it is right now. And then, and I know at least on the iPhones, you can add a little text to it. And I want you to add the text, I am worth it. All right. So within 24 hours, you need to take one action step that's going to propel you towards one of your goals, whether that's getting healthy, maybe that's, changing your schedule so you have more time to spend with your family. Maybe it's watching the minimalism documentary. Maybe it's listening to another one of Dov's podcasts, but within the next 24 hours, I want you to do one thing. Imagine a long string of dominoes, and each domino, the tiniest one is in front of you, and then it's twice the size, and then twice the size, twice the size. I just want you to flick over the first domino in the next 24 hours. That's my challenge to you guys.
That's awesome, mate. That's awesome. Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you, about the mission, about the university, and all the wonderful resources that you have.
Yeah, the main place is millionpoundmission.com. That's where you can access all the stuff. I love to hang out on Instagram also. So if you guys are around on Instagram, just follow Million Pound Mission. It's an eclectic page. You get a lot of me, a lot of my kids in my life, a lot of podcasting, a lot of weight loss and Million Pound Mission stuff. But I love to connect with people, so don't hesitate to reach out. And also, just as a personal favor to me, if you guys can go on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this and leave a review for this podcast, because Dov delivers. And I want you to use my special hashtag for Dov in the review, so that I know that he knows what's coming. He knows what's coming. So I'm a big proponent of hashtag in Dov we trust. So leave that in the review so that he knows it's from one of the people that heard this episode. In Dov we trust.
When you first get out of that, man, I still think that's hysterical. Thank you. Listen, you need to also listen to Adam's podcast, because he has a great podcast with great guests. And as I said, I've been a guest on there. Other great guests. It's fantastic. And that's the same name, right? Million Pound Mission is the podcast. So you can go find that on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find out more about the Million Pound Mission University also on millionpoundmission.com as well. Anything else? That's also, again, through Instagram. Anywhere else that we need to know about, Adam?
That's the hub, man. If they're interested in podcasting, they can always, I've got another podcast about podcasting called Casting the Pod. So you can check that out as well.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, joy, always, mate. I always love talking to you. You and I always have a good time. Thank you for being so open, vulnerable, and being so generous with spirit and sharing who you are. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dov.
And for you, dear listener, as always, remember, information is worth the hole in a donut. Transformation comes from application. So please don't just listen to this in the background. Take action. Pay attention. Take some notes. Take up the 24-hour challenge that Adam just gave you. I think it's awesome. Listen, if you want to hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any past episodes, you can go to Facebook, go to our Facebook page, Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast, and chat there about this, because this was an awesome show. There's a lot of great value for you here. And if you want to find out more about hiring me, Dov Baron, as your speaker or your strategist for your organization or your event, you can simply go to fullmontyleadership.com/consulting or fullmontyleadership.com/speaking. I'm happy to be of service to you. I look forward to working with you. Be aware that the research consistently shows that the fastest growing companies face the same challenge over and over again. They spend a fortune training and attracting talent, only have them leave before they get their ROI. If you're tired of that and you really want to make sure that your talent sticks, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need triple W's, just matrix like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix assessment tool. It'll show you the 5 areas of leadership and where your strength really lies. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you. I want to thank you for sharing this show with everybody you know. Until next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you actually are worth it. It's important to consider that. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.